Hi, I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I want to talk to you about how to, no, oh, me and titles. Okay, I want to talk to you about prioritizing taking out the nervous system trash over the head trash or the brain trash. Some people say, I like that too. When the goal is overcoming anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. Okay. And you know that I help people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And I do this by helping the brain resolve and complete its process for resolving symptoms. And in part of that process, we're doing is we're actually there's a bunch of unresolved stuff in our systems and our body, our mind, every part of us that needs to be processed and cleared out. Not necessarily cleared out and released. Sometimes it gets reused, sometimes it gets upgraded, and sometimes it gets released entirely. If it's not a fit for you, your system knows you better than anybody. And so if it's not a fit for you, your brain will actually get rid of it. So it is so important to get stuff through this process because we can actually take out the trash. And so this is really, really important because um, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of push around subconscious programming. There's a lot of push towards with your belief systems. There's a lot of push towards um, understanding your symptoms, talking about your symptoms. There's so many things out there, and if you had, I think about that stuff as the mindset work, working on belief systems, things like that, subconscious programming. I think that's like brain trash. Right? It's like it needs to, there's stuff that needs to be resolved. It's causing you to cycle through behaviors, repeat patterns, stay stuck, stay limited, stay small. Your subconscious programming has a lot to do with why your life looks exactly like it looks right now. It's all the programs in your subconscious program create how your life looks right this very moment and all your next moments and all your moments always. So you can see why this stuff's really important and why people are like, you got to get rid of the subconscious brain trash. You got to get rid of all the beliefs that are no longer serving you. And yes, it is important. And then there's the other side of things, which is your nervous system. And so, and this is kind of nebulous because we don't talk about this stuff as much. We don't talk about the stuff that's in our nervous systems. And um, but once you do, you can really start clearing things out of your nervous system entirely, and it's really fun. It's really beautiful, and yeah. So, but let me tell you that so much more healing comes from this because this has to do with your body. This has to do with your electrical highways. This has to do with the information that's passing through. And if you resolve this, you get to resolve this. Working with your nervous system is one of the fastest ways to resolve the brain trash. So if you come over here to Nervous Systemville and you learn how to help your brain process and resolve the unresolved, no longer helpful things running and coursing through your nervous system, you are winning big. Because everything that we're doing, everything that we're processing, everything we're understanding is running through our nervous system. And the cool part is that just by talking about your nervous system, you can start tuning into it, and you're actually working with your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters in information and keeps things filtered out. And you might notice that you might start tuning into it, your nervous system, in much different ways. You might notice the sounds that it makes. I will cue people to do this. I will guide people to, if your nervous system were telling me that, what sounds would we hear from it? Right? Because nervous systems don't have sounds. So this is really cool because what we're doing here is we're coming under the cognitive layers of us. We are coming underneath, like way past our thinking and our thoughts. And let me tell you, the problem with anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress is not with our thinking center. It's not with our thoughts. It's not with what we're thinking. It's not with our patterns of thoughts. The problems that we are noticing with our thinking and our patterns of thought actually are because that part of the brain's not getting more of the information it needs. It's not getting processed, the garbage in our nervous system. And so all that garbage is kind of mixing up with this, and it's just it's limiting us. It's just when it's not supposed to work like this. And so once we get that information pulled through and we get that information in our nervous systems processed, now all of a sudden it's like this big delivery thing that gets dropped off, and the front of your brain is like, oh, all this information, what are we going to do with it? And it goes in, it's like, oh, I knew we were missing this, and it goes and plugs it in. And as it keeps plugging things into your life and into like your programs, you start functioning higher, you start functioning better. You Your nervous system calms down when you start pulling these things out of your nervous system. Beautiful things start to happen. I want to give you some examples. Okay. um, I was working with a client that, and you might have heard me talk about this. um, oh, let me tell you another principle. If the symptom of anxiety does not leave the body, you do not resolve the symptom. It doesn't leave. You can know the symptom's ridiculous. You can realize that this is not a big deal. You can go do the thing anyway. You can say, it's not limiting me. You can do all these things. But until that symptom of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress leaves your body and your nervous system, because they're the same thing, you don't get rid of the symptom. And this is what we want. We want you to actually get rid of the symptoms. We want you to heal. When you get rid of these symptoms, it's actually like symptoms are just these big packages of information that get delivered to your work crew. And they're like all sitting around like, we'd love to build the house, but we don't have enough material. And so we've got three walls. We don't have this. We don't. And they're up here doing this. But these workers don't just do this. They start running around in circles. They start going to try to go get more lumber. They just start doing all this stuff, right? And it's not functional. And that's why it's so important to get this stuff through your nervous system, because it's actually the material that your inner builders, your health builders are looking for. So please don't dismiss your symptoms as in they're just problems, they're just pains in your behind. No, it's actually the missing material. Okay. So hear me tell you that you cannot overcome anxiety, depression, traumatic stress without clearing this stuff from your nervous system. Okay. So let me tell you a couple of examples of this. Um, oh, I totally want to nerd out. Okay. Um, so I'm going to tell you, I had this client come to me who hadn't been sleeping for years, 15 years, and severe childhood neglect. Awful, awful, awful. They had no idea how much anxiety they had. They just thought they couldn't sleep, and they were doing a bunch of mental tricks to like they were like, y'all need sleep. They were, and I don't know how well this person was functioning so well. And when the first week we started working together, I was listening to them tell me about their sleep and what the heck's going on there, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a problem. And so I, of course, went for the biggest hit because I'm trying to get results as fast as I can for my clients. Because if we don't get sleep on, we're going to have a really hard time bringing the rest of the healing functions on. So if people come to me and sleep is jacked all up, I'm going for that because we need to get the most healing parts of us on board because we're about to do a lot of healing work. Okay. So he tells me about this sleep problem he's been having for 15 years. And so I say, okay, um, so our plan is that we are going to take the belief, um, it's not safe to sleep, from his nervous system. Right now, yes, I'm playing with the subconscious mind. If you are skilled at this work, you know that we're talking about beliefs, right? But because we are also working on the belief in the nervous system, we're actually tuning into this much differently than we would if we were looking for a belief or telling a story. Like we're doing this, we are positioning the body to look specifically into the nervous system to find this thing and pull it out and process it. And right, once that thing's out of there, the system's going to be like, oh my gosh, else should we put in here? Good, because the reprocessing and reconfiguring is not my business. That's your brain's business. So I don't play with that stuff. um I don't not play with that, but I that's pretty sacred ground, and I really will only get involved if I see brains are spinning, and I will only get involved as enough until they can find some ground. And there's tricks for that to get the brain to do it. Because if we do it for the brain and the brain doesn't figure it out, then we have to keep doing it, right? We have to keep tying the shoes over and over again. And that's not like your brain that wants freedom. It doesn't want you to walk it around all the time. And you don't want that either, right? So that's what we did. So we our goal was to pull this out of the nervous system, and so I had them tuning into their nervous system, listening to their nervous system. What sound would this make? What color is this? I mean, anything and everything that I could get their whole brain to turn around and look at. What is this going on in my nervous system? We did that, and we used some interventions. And the next thing we knew, a week later, they come back to my office. We didn't even work on that very long. I thought we'd be there forever. I was like, this is a thick problem. This is complex. They came back next week and they were like, I'm sleeping. They have come back to me. Uh, they came week after week for a bit there, and they're like, I'm still sleeping. I don't even know what to do with not having all this time. This is awesome. This is how the rest of the world lives. Um, but we resolved it because we went after it in the nervous system. We went after it. We cleared it from the body. We cleared the feelings of unsafety and and just that it's not safe to sleep from the nervous system, and it was ready to clear. And so it's such a big, we're pulling in so many things when we tune into the body like that, and we tune into the nervous system. um, I don't think it would have cleared as quickly as if we would have just worked at it as a belief, and if we would have worked at it just as a subconscious program. I do teach people how to take subconscious programming and how to pull it up. You can pull up your specific subconscious program. You want to know why you're emotionally eating? Catch yourself in the next emotional eating. Pull up your subconscious program. You'll know exactly why. And guess what? While it's up, you can actually reprocess it, and you will not see that thing happen in the same way. It will start evolving right away, and you can keep working on it until it is where you want it. I don't know how long that would take for any specific person because it's different for everybody. Um, but this is how we get massive change and healing with these complex issues. Um, so another reason to go after the nervous system, there was another thing. Oh, an example from my own life. I am one of those people that I do all the things. I'm busy. I'm just busy. As you clear off your trauma history, I have a history of complex childhood trauma. I had to wire this thing myself, um, with the later on with the help of some very cool people. And but as you get off the big symptoms, because that's what happens first, you got to get the big stuff off: the panic attacks, the racing thoughts, the insomnia. You got to get this stuff off. As this stuff starts clearing, then you start to see the quieter layers that it doesn't matter. Like it's like they were there, but they were not, like they are just not on your radar because all these big things were in your world. So we've got to get the big things off. Then it comes the more refined stuff. And then the longer you work at this, because I don't know that this is true in people that don't have complex trauma, childhood trauma, but what I know for all of us is that our brains are always pulling from all of our timelines, from when we were children, from when we were in utero, from when any experience that we have had. Your brain is wired to pull it up, and it's like if you're doing this, it's like, oh, I've been here before, I know, and it'll bring stuff up from the back and try to make associations. It's one part of your system's way of making sense out of the world. And so it's always using recycled material. Now, I don't think that all parts of us are like this. I don't think our heart field is like this. I don't think, well, maybe. Okay. I have nothing to say on that. But it's constantly bringing up material and running, and it's like a secretary that's like, okay, we're going to go do this, and they're handing you stuff to prep you for it, right? Your whole system is doing that. And so we really want whatever's coming from the back to be processed because it's kind of come forward. And if it's unprocessed, that means it's still got the original old pain involved, because all the positive emotions we feel just run straight through the healing process all the time. It's the stuff that the unresolved stuff is the stuff that would register in the brain as pain it has a much more difficult time making it through the brain's healing process. That's why if we find pain in the system, we want to manually walk it through for a while until your brain's like, oh, I know what to do with this pain. Huh, let's, and we want your brain to be really good at processing pain. But your brain will always keep bringing stuff from the back, all your experiences up. And if you've had parents that were really helpful to your nervous system, wired you really well, they helped you go through big things, they really taught your nervous system how to deal with painful emotions, they supported you, right? And you by by the time you get to be whatever age, most of the stuff in the back is processed. Every once in a while you'll have some stuff come up that's just painful residue, but for the most part it's not like covered in pain in the back, in your pain, in your experiences. Now if you're somebody who can't remember a lot of your memories, that had emotionally and mentally unwell parents, if you had childhood trauma, illnesses of any kind in your family system, um, not enough attention, not enough attunement, not enough healthy attachment, then your earliest memories are going to be filled with lots of pain. And that means every time your brain reaches back to go bring something up, it's Painesville. And so your nervous system will start like, I don't want to bring it up. And you'll start to say, well, don't do that because it brings up the stuff. And then you start doing things that don't bring up the stuff. And then pretty soon your brain starts bringing, it's like it's hard to live a wonderful full adult life when your stuff in the back of your subconscious stuff is loaded with pain, because pain has a very hard time making it through your brain's healing process, your brain's maturation process, your brain's growth process. So the more stuff that's in pain, the more it's hindering your ability to grow, to mature, to expand, and to be healthy and adaptive, to adapt to real life situations. If that stuff in the back can't make it through the healing pathways, we're adapting to our trauma because it actually is not coming to a place where it can come up and mix in here, and your brain will always prioritize pain. And so that's a really long way for me to tell you that throughout all of our life, we're going to find, if we've got complex childhood trauma, it's, you're going to go 10 years and then something's going to happen and your brain's going to be like, ooh, I don't know, I guess we should bring up stuff we've never used before. And next thing you know, it's got a memory that comes up from who knows when, and it like shuts your system down. And if you know how to deal with this, you can support your brain and you just integrate it, right? And that's why those of us with complex childhood trauma, it's so important we get these skills, because we're not really working with the same kind of wiring that the rest of the world is working with. And it really helps to have these tools because our nervous system is still, there's some tender spots in our history that we can support our brain with when it needs that support. So now I'm going to come back and tell you about something I found in my nervous system. I mean, I was telling you about how busy I am. Um, and it's actually, this is something I'm actually currently working on, taking down even further. But maybe a year ago, maybe it was a year and a half ago, um, I started just noticing a layer inside of myself that was very pressured. It was like, it's not busy for fun, right? It's busy because there's some fear running through my nervous system. And so I was like, gosh, what am I going to do with this? Because I had yet to invent a process for this. Um, like, I don't know that that's, as you do this work, you realize that the brain will work in infinite numbers of ways if you just know how to work with it, right? Um, and so, the principles of it, you can really start to do an art with it. And so I'm listening to this thing and I'm like, what is that? And so I'm starting to tune into my nervous system. And I'm tuning in and I hear, I'm not going to make it in time. 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 So I'm just like, how interesting. Because, I'm fascinated and like having problems all at the same time because I'm into this brain function thing. So I'm feeling the anxiety, right? And I'm feeling this, I'm not going to make it in time. And I'm like, where the heck are we going? So I know I'm not having a logical problem with my body right now. I'm not having a logical problem with my thoughts. I don't have a logical problem. I know that I am experiencing something that's coming through my nervous system. And yeah, okay, I could deal with the fact that I'm busy. I could go do all this stuff, but I know that I'm going to get bigger bang out of my buck for pulling something out of my nervous system. So I sit down and I start. Um, what I found, that kind of talk is a type of compulsion. It's compulsion energy, and it's fear based, and it's the brain using fear to push, and it's like flee. It's a survival state that runs kind of very low underground, and it wasn't a big one. I've had it in my system the whole time. Excuse me, playing with my curtains. But it was never problematic, and it was never up in the surface. It was never something that was like it's a finer detail. But I started to get really excited because I was like, wow, like I think I'm going to go to another level of like calm over here and relaxation. So, and compulsion energy, you don't want to stop compulsion energy. You want to get it processed. And so if you think of, meanwhile, I have a train going in my back here, in my backyard, but it's like a train. Compulsion energy is like a train. It's not something you want to stop. You don't want to get in front of this energy because it's very big, and it's really, compulsion energy is very hard to stop. And because your whole nervous system is working with it. It's in your nervous system. It's moving through your body, and it doesn't have logic to it. It's just moving powerfully. And so you really want to come beside yourself when you're dealing with compulsion energy, and you want to watch it and you want to be using an intervention with it so that you're actually cranking your brain's ability to resolve all and process all of the compulsion energy. And so here I go, and I'm like pulling up beside it. I'm using an intervention, and it's starting to process, and I'm staying with it. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. I'm not going to make it in time. I'm not going to make it in time. I'm going with this. I'm kind of chanting with it because I'm like, I'm staying with you. You and me are going all the way through my brain's healing process right now. And so I do. And as it's processing, I'm having a memory come up, I'm a story, right? And I'm seeing this stuff. So I'm just with that story because there's different layers that come into this. I teach people how to do this very slowly, and then pretty soon you start working at the speed of your brain, and you start working with your brain, and your brain sends you an emotion, and it sends you an event, and it's like in their strategies to, okay, let me get that and process this. Okay, now let me get this, and you can really work with your brain to have different strategies to work with the different parts of you, your body, your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, your nervous system, and your survival system. And so you can really stay really nicely with your brain and get stuff processed very quickly. Um, and so this event's coming up, and I'm having all these feelings that go with it, and I just stay with it. And by the time I'm finished, I am like relieved. I have like this whole burness. I was like, wow, that was pretty awesome. And it was because I worked through the nervous system, right? And because I did that, I got to take out a lot of brain trash. And so it's not that there's not, you don't want to work with the subconscious mind. There's always a time and a place for that. But your nervous system makes up everything of who you are. It's with you in every single experience. It's with you in dissociation. It is experiencing dissociation. It is experiencing flashbacks. It is what is experiencing the tension in your body and the tingling in your arms and legs. It is what is determining, and it is running all the sensory information up to your brain. Like this is like the piece. And so and like I said, I'm not saying don't do mindset work, don't do that other stuff, but gosh, know how to work with your nervous system. Know how to do mindset work with an eye on and an ear on, and a touch on your nervous system, because the change that occurs in your nervous system is powerful. It's multi-layered. You can rock out so many symptoms with just one effort working with your nervous system, as opposed to the different tasks you have to do and the mindset and daily gratitude and to recondition all this subconscious stuff. And you can recondition your nervous system so much faster by working with it directly and by learning its language, learning how it works. And it's powerful and it's fun. And once you know how to do this, you can do this with your friends, you can do this with your children, you can do this with your loved ones. And there is not a nervous system on the planet that does not need help regulating once in a while. And once you know how to do this, this is a life skill. And this increases your emotional wellness, your emotional intelligence, your emotional and your mental connections, your relationship skills. I mean, this stuff is just the ticket into the life of your dreams. And because your nervous system is going to take you to the life of your dreams. So, and if your nervous system doesn't think the life of your dreams is safe, you're not going, right? And so this is just a little different spin on it, but it's powerful, and that's really what I want to share. And this is really what I help people with. I teach people. I have a step-by-step process, a curriculum called Inner World Transformation that is available that you can start using right now. You can learn how to work with each part of you. You can learn how to do your stress process and get your brain to process stress. The brains use stress for growth. I mean, so if you're not processing your stress, the available stress, and you're getting buried by it, you could get traumatized, but also you're not getting your growth. You're staying in situations longer than you need to. You're having to cope, and all you need to do is learn some strategies. And the next thing you know, you get to open all these doors. You get to help your brain with stress. You get to help your brain with unresolved issues. You get to, this curriculum is a step-by-step process for resolving layer after layer your symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. So it is, gosh, it's really what I give my therapy clients. It's what we're using as we do this work. It's the foundation of my intensive coaching program. This is what I use to help people heal, and it's designed to do the work in 2 to 6 months, which is phenomenal. Even massive chronic trauma, right? I just said something pretty big. So think about that. If this is something that you want to talk with me about, if you're interested in these programs, you're interested in seeing if they will work for you, grab a spot on my calendar. I will be honest with you. I'll take a look at what your goals are, what symptoms you're looking at. I'll tell you after looking. I'll tell you about how long this will take you based on my process, and if it will work for you, or if there's something else that you should try first, or where else you should get started. And so, if you're ready for something like that, I invite you to book a call with me by going to rachelmcleod.com/call, and you can choose a time that works best for you. And yeah, there's a questionnaire that will help me and you both get ready for our call. And then we'll really dive in and make the most out of those 45 minutes. So I think I've said all the things. I see that there's a comment, so I'm going to answer that as well. The other thing I want to tell you is I have added in onto my website my newest webinar. It's gender inclusive. Finally, I've been working on that for a while. And it is my step-by-step process for resolving symptoms of anxiety. Now, it's also my step-by-step process for resolving depression and traumatic stress. But it would have been a really long webinar, so like a presentation. And so I just went with one. But I want you to hear from me on the back end that this is how I do every one of these things, because symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress are all they all result from the same brain malfunction, the same brain process malfunction. And so when you work with the brain's process, that one process, you can resolve any of those symptoms, anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress. Well, you can get your brain to resolve those symptoms. And that's really where the beauty is and where the wonderful health is. So I definitely encourage you to do that. I've added the link in the header here. You can also find that available on my website. And yeah, so, and I encourage you, please, by all means, like this video, give it a heart, drop your comments here. If there's anything I said that confused you, that gave you more questions, you've had insight or experiences with these things, drop your comments here. Let's talk about it. Let's chat. Yeah, there's lots of people watching these videos that many don't have words. So if you have words and you want to share your words, it's always welcome here. So that's it. Let's look at this. Okay. Holly says, what type of therapy is this? I live in Alaska where mental health services are very limited. I have always wanted to do EMDR. Is this anything similar? Absolutely. Yes, it is. I so the interventions I teach people, because part of my process with, if you watch my webinar, I lay it out right very clearly. The very first step we do is I equip you with interventions, because it's all fun and games when you go to a therapist and you're using the interventions, but really your brain needs support in the moments when it needs it. And so I don't want people waiting for therapy sessions to be able to provide their brain with support. And so I that's and also there's so much of this work you can do yourself, which actually you can do most of the work yourself. And so, but you need to know how to use the interventions and have this be equipped with them. And so what I do is I teach people basic skills, and then we use the strategies. And so along the way, it's a learning by doing. So along the way, you get better and better skills. But the interventions I teach people to use are EMDR, thought field therapy, energy medicine, and emotional freedom techniques. So those are the four that I teach. I do not teach EMDR straight out of the gate, because it is can be very dangerous. It is not the right fit for everybody, and you need to have some really great skills before you start using EMDR. But that's okay, because these other ones work really well, and I would say sometimes almost even better. If I had to get rid of trauma processing intervention, which I would just be mortified about, I would go kicking and screaming, because I love every one of them. But if I had to give one up and only use the other ones, I would give up EMDR without a with if that's what I had to do, because it really has some major limitations. And but if it is the right fit for you, it's fantastic. Most people soon will be able to use EMDR. So in the training program, I start people out with emotional freedom techniques and a training for that. My favorite trauma processing intervention, that's part of thought field therapy, and energy medicine stuff. And this is because I find the energy medicine stuff very healing and very like pulling, repairing, where these other interventions, we are going to use them mostly for healing, for symptom resolution, from very specific things. The energy medicine stuff, I don't find it as specific and targeted in its work, but I do find it really beautiful, almost unparalleled to the repairing, when we want to be intentionally repairing things. So I do teach EMDR strategies. I do teach a lot of different strategies. I teach EMDR strategy the second week of the program, but we use other interventions first, because these other interventions are more heal. They work very quickly. They give you a lot more control. EMDR is like jumping into the passenger seat and letting your brain drive the car. And your brain has wanted to do a lot of healing work for a long time. And sometimes it's like you barely buckled up and your brain takes off and goes where you might not be prepared to go. And so some people love that ride, and it's great for their nervous systems. Lots of traumatized people are not. So if you've got a couple symptoms of anxiety, yes, this probably is good for you. If you've been talking about your trauma for a really long time, EMDR really might be a great fit. But if you've got memories that you can't even find, you don't remember most of your childhood, let's take this slow, because less pain equals more gain. And I've been super ambitious and said, let's do this. And I have caused some real problems in people's uh, mental inner world with this when I first began. And I learned it's not worth it. One of my clients spent 2 weeks in hospitalization, because inpatient hospitalization, because that's what happens when you use EMDR improperly. And I am not the first and only therapist to do that. Most therapists go through a period of being very afraid to use EMDR, because it is that risky. So hear me when I'm telling you, I'm not trying to stop your fun, but I want you to have a successful, awesome process. And so if you learn the skills, and you can use these other interventions to get a lot of healing work done, learn how to work with a specific part of your brain, build your skills for healing and for helping your brain resolve stuff. And then when you bring in the different intervention, you're like, oh, I know what we're doing already. Let's go. Also, when you come with that intervention, if it does get too intense, which you'll know because you've practiced a lot already, you've already got a lot of healing, you've already done a lot of rewiring by this point, and you'll hear from your system, we are not okay. You need to knock this off. And you can stop that, and you can switch back to another intervention that you already have skills with. This increases your safety, and it reduces the chance that you're going to harm yourself with a very powerful intervention. Okay, so I teach EMDR strategies specifically in the sixth part of the program. I teach um, a passive use of an alternative use of EMDR in the first week of the program. So I do, but I don't. I put it on the back end. If you you go and you start that process, the program. Um, Let me just use my mind here. You're gonna see the trainings, right? And then you're gonna see the strategy, because I put you straight to work. And the first part of the program is about getting your brain ready to it's processing stress. And so we need that function turned on, because stress is different than trauma, because we're going for the trauma. If you've got anxiety and depression, you probably also have trauma. And so we need to do the first steps and get your brain, let's put the pedal on, but not floor it, right? We need to get things moving. So, and that gets you the practice with your brain. It starts resolving symptoms and starts reducing your stress levels, which gives you more space to do bigger work. And so I love that part of the program. Most of my clients, even when they're finished with the program, that's the one they'll stay using, because brains are always doing stress. It's like brain food. Stress is brain food. Yeah, I like that I've said that. Okay. Um, so yes, that Holly says this, and this is real. She says, I've never gotten far enough in therapy to actually do the work, the EMDR work. It's always been frustrating. Yes, I am frustrated with you, because um, this tells me you've experienced quite a bit of trauma, and it's still pretty painful. And when you're trained in EMDR, you're trained in those situations. You have to be talking with people and preparing people for the work. That can take months, seriously, like 6 months. They said that to me in a training, and I'm like, what? You're going to wait 6 months to start working with somebody's nervous system and regulating them and helping them heal and get rid of symptoms? You have lost your minds. But I was already trained in other interventions, so I was like, whatever, dudes, do you. I'm not here to argue with people, because nobody likes the person that shows up at the party and starts arguing with everybody. And I've done that enough. I didn't need to show up for that party. So I'm in there. I'm learning this because it's fun. But but most EMDR therapists are only trained in EMDR. And that means if you're not ready for it, they don't have something else to help you with. And so you're just stuck waiting to get ready. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. Um, Even my most traumatized clients were going. As a matter of fact, sometimes when I start to work with somebody and they're already triggered I'm starting to match them with, like, in therapy, when I'm doing the assessment and intake, and they've completed their informed consents and all the things. Um, I'm going to start regulating their nervous system immediately. I am trying to, like, can we find a match for them now? And yes, we can. Let's go. And like, you're going to walk out of this thing in the next 10 minutes, your nervous system is going to be much more regulated than you came here with. And from now on till the end, that is it. And so don't let that discourage you that you've never got far enough into the work to do EMDR. There are other interventions. You can pick them up right now. Matter of fact, you can get on my email list right now. I will send you the first intervention, because I'm constantly, not constantly, I send out the interventions on my email list. Now, the truth of the matter is that if you've got work to do, you're going to need more than an intervention. You're going to need the strategies, and you're going to need the step-by-step process, because it's a jungle in there, right? If you've got an anxiety disorder, if you've got unresolved trauma, or you have a history of childhood trauma, there's a whole jungle in there. And I don't want you to get lost or become discouraged or lose your way, when this can be a very simple, strategic, step-by-step process that can get you results and keep things fun, even. And so that's really a cool thing, to do your trauma work in a really fun way. Just awesome. Yes, don't let that discourage you. Try some new things. So, um, okay. So, yes, all of that. Okay, awesome. And then Holly says, thank you. I'm very interested. I've been following you for a while. I have a therapist, but I don't feel like it's as beneficial as it could be. Yeah, there are not a lot of therapists that are trained to work with the nervous system, the subconscious mind. Like, um, there's a lot of great talk therapists. And mind you, I am not one of them. I actually did talk therapy. I failed. I sucked at it. I quit. I had a total bad attitude. I don't even like talk therapy. I mean, I am not them, right? But what I have also done is I don't do any of that stuff. I simply help the brain heal, right? And so that doesn't make me better than them. It means when you need your system, when you need your brain to do your healing work, you come to someone like me. When you need support, when you need information, when you need guidance, that they are phenomenal at this. When you need them to pick through your marriage, that's they're specialists in that. Don't let me give you marriage advice. Like, no, okay. Because that's not my specialty. And I think that the more we understand this, the more we will go. There's so many dead ends, right? We don't need to be going to dead ends. We need to heal. It's time to heal now. Let's do this. Let's go. So, so absolutely. So, and I invite all of you, and Holly, you specifically, grab a spot on my calendar. Let's talk about this. Let's look at what would be the match. If you want to do this work intensively, if you want to do this work on your own, if you want a starting point, um, yeah. And if you're more hesitant than that, you're like, I don't know, Rachel, which I know you've been following me for a while, but if any of you are on here like that, join my email list, watch the video training series, play with these interventions, start playing with your brain, get a feel for it. If you're finding a benefit, and I would say, because I'm not there looking at your brain, seeing what's happening, the results it's getting, I would say give the intervention, use it daily, maybe like a half hour a day. Try it 10 minutes here, 1 minute there, 30 seconds here, for a week, and then look back on your week and see, was there benefit here? Did I grow? Is there any growth? Even if it's just a little bit, it's huge for your brain. And then if you have one that works, it's time to get to work. It's time to learn the strategies. It's time to learn the next steps. It's time to work through the layers of it's time to take apart your anxiety, depression, and or traumatic stress. So don't just stop with the knowledge, get the strategies, get what you need there. So, all right. Wonderful connecting with you all. Wonderful hanging out. Holly, I'm so thrilled you asked those questions. It's fun. And you're not alone in that. This is so common. I try not to even hang out in the EMDR worlds because I'm just like I love EMDR, but brains are phenomenal and brains heal in multiple ways, and we can have more than one intervention. So yeah, all right. So oh, you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. So all right, see you all later, and enjoy your night. And gosh, I cheers to your healing. I'm cheering for you. I'm so excited for you, and see you soon.